if they like can make the simple changes of like, I'm walking daily, I'm drinking my water, I'm eating fruits and vegetables, and I'm going to bed early, I guarantee you, like if they did that for like a few weeks, even a month, they would start to see like some changes. If you're not having daily bowel movements, that's definitely should be like red flag number one, because that again is like a sign of slow detox, slow digestion, something going on there. The gut and the hormones definitely do go hand in hand. A lot of times, everyone has different roles, whether if you're a mom, whether you're doing your own business, whatever, wife, whatever you do, you have things that like we're trying to do it all that, and then you're trying to like do the things to support yourself as well too.
Welcome to Real Women, Real Results, the podcast where we go beyond the reps and dive into what it really takes to live a stronger, healthier, and more confident life. I'm your host, Jamie Revell, women's fitness expert and founder of W3 Body women's training gyms in Chicagoland. Each week, we'll bring you real stories, expert insights, and the tools you need to create real results. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Real Women, Real Results. I'm your host, Jamie Revell, and today I'm so excited to introduce you to one of our amazing members and my guest here, Noelle Fines. She is a registered dietitian and functional nutrition practitioner. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I wanted to kick this off and just chat a little bit about, that feeling where we've all been, when you are doing all the things and you're trying to eat healthy and you're conscious that you need to manage stress and you need to sleep, but you need to exercise and you need to do this, all the things, and you struggle to feel 100% or feel like, your body's working the way that it should. And I know that, I work with tons of women that we all feel this from time to time. And I've had a lot recently that come to me and they're like, well, I'm tired, I'm frustrated, I'm bloated, and I'm wondering what else should I be doing? So let's kick this off and start here. What are the biggest issues that you're seeing with women right now? And why do so many of us feel like our efforts just aren't paying off?
Yeah. So I would say probably the two most common things that I run into are gut imbalances or gut issues, and then also hormones. And the interesting thing is sometimes this can go hand in hand, and we'll definitely dive much more into that
Yes,
here.
definitely.
But those are probably two of the biggest things I see. So there typically is some deeper underlying cause that is actually going on that is slowing down their progress or, impairing the way that they're feeling or something is functioning in their body. And that can really kind of, I don't want to say derail your success with what you're trying to do, but it really can slow the process down and make it challenging. And then kind of that cycles into that whole like you just feel frustrated and unmotivated because you're doing all the things like you hear.
Yeah. Okay. So can you briefly explain, what's your background and what is functional nutrition?
Yeah. First and foremost, I'm a registered dietitian. So, registered dietitian in the sense that I did a 4-year training program, got my bachelor's in undergrad in nutrition and dietetics, and then had to do a internship program. So, roughly like a 1.5 year program long. And then once you do that full internship, you're eligible to sit for the board's exam and then become registered as a dietitian. Functional nutrition and medicine is kind of a separate thing from that CDR, so the credentialed registered dietitian. And so that was like another additional training that I did. So functional nutrition basically is we are taking a different approach to nutrition and dietetics. We're taking a whole body approach. So more of a holistic approach. And we're looking at the person is, again, in the sense of whole body instead of individual symptoms or individual things. We're not really just like putting a Band-Aid on what's going on. We're really trying to correct the root cause of what's happening versus managing the symptoms. Where dietetics and traditional nutrition is very focused on like standard of care practices. There are more, I would say, kind of generalized recommendations for specific health conditions, but kind of treating it as more of a one-size-fits-all approach versus from a holistical standpoint, or holistical, sorry, made that word up, a holistic standpoint.
That works.
We are focusing more on like the person as an individual, getting to that deeper root cause of what's going on, and then how we can help you, individually come up with a plan to, kind of reach your health goals or treat or help with these different conditions.
Okay. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And I feel like I hear this from time to time in like the medical world. It seems like it's treating from, and please correct me if I'm wrong, like the inside out versus outside in, where the traditional model is like or Western
Yep.
medicine, I guess,
Mhm.
if you will,
Yeah.
the outside and the symptoms versus like, well, what's causing the symptoms? Like,
Yeah.
let's figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. So again, not to like knock Western medicine, like I
Mhm.
definitely think there's a time and place for some of these
Absolutely.
things. But again, the holistic approach is more like you said, we're not just like band-aiding everything, right? We're not
Yeah.
like, okay, my cholesterol is high. Let me, go on a statin or my blood pressure's off or this. We're kind of really trying to get to the deeper root cause of pressure high, right? Because you can give someone medication and they can take it, but then if they stop that medication, and they didn't figure out what was
Yeah.
going on or treat it from a more lifestyle approach, they're just going to have high blood pressure again. So
Yes.
it's really getting to the deeper, yes, inside root cause of what is happening and why we have all these more chronic, diseases and things nowadays than we used to like many, many years ago.
Right. Yeah. It's super scary,
Yeah.
especially autoimmune diseases. And it's like more and more prevalent. Now, is that because environmental factors? Is that because we have better diagnosing practices or a mix of the two, perhaps?
Yeah.
I'm not here to answer that question today, but
Yeah. I don't know if I know the full answer to
yeah.
that either, but
And then what drew you to go into the functional medicine side of it?
yeah. So I kind of a couple different things. I had some of my own like health stuff going on. And I think like just like being in school and learning about nutrition and all that kind of stuff, I kind of just like on my own, just kind of was doing my own researching and, trial and error with food and lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of like got me a little deeper into learning more about functional nutrition. Sometimes I always wonder, like, if not that I wouldn't not have done the route I did, but like if I would have known about functional nutrition first, would I have maybe like gone a different route potentially? I don't know, but I'm glad everything worked out how it did.
Yeah.
So a little bit for my own health and wellness. And then I actually, interestingly enough, before becoming a dietitian, I actually had a background as a chef. So I did go to culinary school for 2 years.
Oh, fun.
And I did a lot of cooking and I was a private chef and a caterer for quite some time. And I've always just related, like I've had such like a connection to food and just like, cooking and real food and wellness in that sense. And so it kind of just really like made sense to me that like,
Yeah.
okay, understanding like how the body works and how, protein, carbs, fat, all that kind of stuff plays a role in our overall health, but being able to apply that to food, because obviously food is where that all comes from, right?
Mhm.
All stems from. So I think it was a little bit of a combination of the two that kind of drove me to that.
Cool.
And then like, yeah, I just wanted to do further education after I did my, credentialing and stuff. And
Mhm.
that further education, luckily, the program that I went to for functional nutrition actually is an accredited site with my dietetics. So that did go towards some of my continuing education hours. So it kind of
Oh,
worked in that,
yeah. Double
advantage.
win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Like, how did you become into the role or that you have now? Because
Yeah,
I know you mentioned to me that you see all of your clients virtually.
yeah,
So just curious on how that works because, you know, our listeners might be curious as well. Like,
yeah.
what does that look like to work with a registered dietitian and functional nutrition
Yeah.
practitioner?
So I actually work for a company. It's called Sarah Lynn Nutrition. And so they are a private practice team of dietitians. This company is actually based in New York. So when she started this company, Sarah Lynn is the actual owner and she's a dietitian too. She was just based out of New York. She had 4 brick and mortars. And then eventually she just kept on growing and
Mhm.
she expanded to telehealth and telemedicine. And so now we have dietitians throughout the US. So I think I'm actually the only Illinois dietitian right now, which is kind of interesting because to how it works with nutrition, like you have to be licensed in your state. So I can only see patients basically from like in the states that I'm licensed in, technically.
Yeah.
So I can only see people from Illinois. And then I am licensed in New York as well, too, since my company is mainly from New York. So I do get
Mhm.
a lot of New York patients as well, too.
Okay.
So Sarah Lynn Nutrition is the company. And so really, I mean, people can come to us. I would say like from New York, it's more a lot of doctor referrals because she has a lot of connections out in New York. So
Mhm.
people are being referred over from there. I do a lot of marketing for her in Chicago. So I go to different like bigger companies in Chicago that offer like wellness programs to their company. And I do like a lunch and learn type of thing where we talk and educate, or there's other like promotional marketing things that I do there. And then we get clients that way as well too. But really anybody can, I mean, if you have insurance, and that's the cool thing, and I think a lot of people don't know with private practice and dietitians is a lot of insurances do cover for
Wow.
nutrition
Yeah.
counseling. So basically, I mean, if you were interested, you would just go online to sarahlynnnutrition.com and then kind of fill out, mark what you're coming for, if it's weight loss, if it's gut, if it's hormone, if it's just general like understanding of nutrition. And then you would set up your appointments and it's all virtual. So it's all telehealth, all telemedicine.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's so cool. Like that they're building across the states and they're able to offer this. So transitioning over to the top issues,
Yeah.
I guess,
Yeah.
right? That you or the struggles, we'll say struggles. So let's start here. How do they know that they have an issue? And I mean that it's something that is feels to them that they're doing all the things and that they're getting no results. And, my next step is let me talk to Noelle.
Yeah. So, I mean, for some people, it can honestly be like, not that I love the scale as my favorite indicator of thing, but it is for some people, right? So maybe it's just like they're doing all the things and they're literally just not seeing the scale budge at all. Like, or they're seeing it even like go up or,
Hmm.
more. And they feel like, wow, I'm like in a deficit and I'm cut out sugar and I'm exercising more and like I'm drinking my water. But like, why did I just gain 10 pounds?
Hmm.
And, that's obviously a sign of some type of imbalance or something going on.
Yeah.
It could be related more specifically to like a, physical more type of thing like that. For some people, it can really be like just a lot of it could be more chronic fatigue or energy issues that they're feeling. And they're just like, wow, I just like, maybe I am sleeping 8 hours, 9 hours and going to bed early, but like I just wake up and I have no motivation, no energy to get out of bed. I feel like I'm lagging throughout the day, struggling with like concentration, brain fog,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, which is obviously, makes it hard to do then all the things that they're trying to do too. So I would
Right.
say that that's a big one. Bloating is a big one that I get to with a lot, especially women too, just like feeling very like, not even just like bloating in the sense of like stomach bloat, but even just like puffiness or almost like inflamed. They might even like see it in their face a little bit or other areas. So I would say those are kind of some of the bigger like maybe signs or symptoms that people start to, notice or, make some kind of like question, is there something off and like, do I need more support?
Yeah. Do you ever send them to like get blood tests or anything like that?
Yeah. So we can definitely do from a functional standpoint, there's actually a lot of really cool testing we can do, which I love. That's my favorite. I always like to say like test, not guess.
Hmm.
I mean, sometimes testing can be a lot in some cases, for some of my very complex patients where it's like they have blood work that they're bringing into me and everything kind of quote unquote looks normal for the most part,
Hmm.
then that makes me like question, do we need like more comprehensive testing? So we can definitely like I can recommend in-depth blood testing if there is something specific that I would want run for a patient. And then we also do comprehensive gut map testing, so stool testing
Oh.
that looks at your whole entire gut microbiome, which is awesome. It tells us so many things. I mean, that could be like a whole nother whole nother topic, but it really is super helpful, especially with very complex GI patients. And then we also do Dutch hormone testing, which is dry urine test comprehensive hormones. So it's urinary testing for your hormones, which sometimes can be a little more accurate in the sense that like blood serum testing is great for your hormones, but keeping in mind that when we're testing our blood, it's looking at a snapshot of time and our
Hmm.
hormones are constantly, especially for females, changing. So you could test at one point in the day and then you can test it at another time in your day and your hormone levels can be different,
Yeah.
which that obviously then kind of like skews the results a little bit. So this type of testing, you're collecting a sample throughout the day, which gives more of like an average of what's going on with your hormones. And then it's more complex in the sense that it really dives deeper into looking at like the breakdown of your hormones and then also how your body is like processing things, how are we metabolizing those hormones, are we detoxing, getting them out of our system? So it gives us more greater insight to like what is happening in the body versus just like estrogen's high, testosterone is low, that kind of stuff. So
Hmm.
again, it really is helpful for certain patients.
Yeah. It sounds like it, like that you would be able to have a more macro and micro view of what's going on if you have obviously
Yeah,
tests instead of guessing.
yeah, yeah. So
Cool.
yeah,
So, when it comes to weight loss, so, we help a lot of ladies that come to us and we help them on the fitness side.
yeah,
Majority, if not all of them, know that nutrition plays a huge role as well. And we like to explain to people coming in that we think about it as weight loss, but really what we're talking about is fat loss because we're not trying to lose muscle, we're trying to gain muscle. So, just putting that into perspective, from your perspective, from the food side, what are the biggest challenges when it comes to food? And how do you feel like you make a difference when you're working with, we'll say weight loss, but fat loss
Yeah,
clients.
yeah. I like that you guys frame it as like fat loss too versus
Yeah.
weight loss. I like to kind of like when I talk with patients, say like body composition or
Yeah, it's same.
composition.
I actually hate the word fat. And
Yeah.
so I try to stay away from it, but like sometimes of course you have to use it and you have to put it into perspective. But
Yeah.
I say the same thing. Instead of being like, we're going to weigh you in, we're going to take your body composition. Cause same, it's not the number of like pounds that
Yeah.
you are. I want to look at your muscle mass percentage and your body fat percentage. So
Yeah.
anyways, tangential,
Yeah.
but
So something that I've been seeing, I feel like a lot lately, and this is probably true to everyone, but I feel like with a lot of our females too, is there's just a lot of confusion to begin with of like
yeah.
where to start and what to do. And in part, I think that's because nowadays, like the health and wellness world and industry has like exploded. And so now we have Instagram, we have TikTok, we have Facebook, and like anybody can go on and like, a person who has like great body composition, looks awesome, works out all the time, blah, blah, blah. They can just like be like, this is what I eat in a day and this is what I do. And then if someone is like, this is how I want to look, I want to do this, I want to whatever, they just start kind of following all these people and doing all these things.
Yes.
It's not necessarily always going to work for everybody, right? Our bodies are all unique and we all need different things. So what works for one person is not necessarily going to be what works for you.
Mhm.
I think it leads to a lot of like food noise and confusion on like, this is bad for you, this is good for you. I hate so many women, oh, I cut out carbs, I don't eat carbs. Like that's like, I'm like, no, you can eat carbs.
Yeah.
So, like not eating carbs. Or, even like cutting out full food groups, like people just like cutting out gluten and dairy because they just think like gluten and dairy must be why I'm gaining weight or why I can't lose weight. And that's not, again, like the case for every single person. So I think it's having confusion, food noise, and then there's no consistency in what they're doing. Our body loves consistency, okay? Like when you think of your circadian rhythm, when you think of like your body, like even like from a digestive standpoint, like your body likes to know, like, okay, it's 8 o'clock, I'm gonna eat. Now it's 12 o'clock, I'm gonna eat. Like think about like a dog. Like a dog like knows at 5 o'clock
Great
when
point.
it's dinner time. Like it's
Yes.
time to eat. So like kind of similar for our body too. And like having that routine helps to keep your blood sugar stable. And your blood sugars play such a huge role in balancing hormones, digestion, energy, sleep, mood. Not just, blood sugars is not just like diabetes. It's not just for diabetics. It's like something that we all need to focus on. So balancing out those blood sugars. They're not being consistent in what they're doing because they are trying so many things and doing so many things. And so I think like the health and wellness field has like almost like overcomplicated nutrition. Like I think we need to like scale it back and just think about like what are some of the basics. So when I'm first working, and again, this is assessing all my patients because some patients I do have come in and like actually do have a very solid understanding and background. And sometimes those are the patients who then have more, it's like a deeper underlying cause. But I do have some people who come in and like they're just all over the board with what they're doing. And so they're not consistently doing what they should be doing. They're falling off the track. And so I like to teach them what I call like foundational nutrition. So really getting back to the basics of like helping them understand how to build a balanced plate that has our main macros that we need. So protein, fat, carbs. And then I always add fiber in there. Fiber is not obviously a macronutrient, but it's kind of a component of your macronutrients, of your carbs specifically. So making sure that they understand those main guys and the balance of getting those on their plate. And then kind of with that, kind of like pairing that with like the blood sugar stability. So like eating consistently throughout the day. So really understanding those foundationals of nutrition. These are kind of like non-negotiable. Anybody, no matter like what health conditions, what you have going on.
Yeah.
If you're not doing this, you're not going to be supporting just like your body on a basic like energy needs level, right? Like not even like thinking of, okay, if we were sitting here all day and we just talked the whole day, we would still need like fat, protein, carbs, and calories throughout the day to just support our body on a basic level. But now think about, we go to the gym here and we work out. We go on a walk with our dog. We run a business. So we're doing, a bunch of different things. Now we're like increasing our energy needs. And so we need more calories, we need more nutrients to be able to even do that. So I think what happens is females then tend to like undernourish themselves as they're cutting things out. And also because, again, misinformation of thinking they need less calories to, see changes and things like that. And then long term, that causes chronic stress on our body, that impairs our metabolism,
Yeah.
that like can then spiral into leading into hormonal issues or gut issues, things like that. So
And that was going to be my next question. What happens when women don't address their gut issues, their hormone health? Like, what do you see long term? And it sounds like worse symptoms,
yeah,
really,
yeah,
overall.
yeah, worse symptoms. And then even too with the digestion, I mean, that can lead to more like malabsorption, malnutrition again. So your body's not able to absorb nutrients properly. A lot stems from the gut too. Like your gut is connected to all these different systems in our body as well. So like our gut plays a role in producing hormones. So like again, if the gut function is off, that can be impairing your body's ability to produce certain hormones. um, so it does like it is again kind of all interconnected. And then that kind of goes back to that whole like whole body approach, right? I'm like not treating your body as like different pieces, but like as a whole, right?
Yeah.
And functioning as a whole.
Absolutely. What you said about like the confusion piece with all the things online, I think it's more so maybe in the nutrition food realm, but in the fitness realm as well. It drives me nuts because people will bring in, and I see it more at our Berwyn location because we have open gym and we have machines and things like
Yeah.
that. So people will come in with crazy things that they've seen people do on machines, like, and they're using it totally backwards. Like you're supposed to be seated like this and they're standing facing the seat. And it's
Oh my
like,
gosh.
guys, relax, but causes in this case some danger.
Yeah.
But also ultimately it could cause an injury or just the next best thing is even crazier. And it's like, let's just back to the basics.
Yeah.
And then I tell my trainers that too, because sometimes when we have ideas for new movements, we look at it as risk versus reward. And is the risk really worth it? Or is the reward just as great or greater with a basic, simple movement?
Yeah.
And so we always go back to that. But yeah, the stuff people see online is just, it's just crazy. Stay away.
I know. That's what I mean. Like, that's the first thing. I'm just like, don't look up Google. Don't do like, you know what I mean? Just like, especially when they start working with me, I'm like, just ask me.
Yes, right.
Don't.
And the other thing I love that you said is about the consistency piece and that your body craves consistency. It's the same thing like your brain craves structure.
Mhm.
So if you
Yeah.
give it that structure to allow that consistency, I think the results will just be there. And obviously, we tell people the same thing with fitness and with strength training. Like, just be consistent. Like, that should be, and let us help you be consistent.
Yeah. And I think when they're able to then like get those basics kind of down, start building consistency and really like helping them come up like what does consistency look like for you and sustainability, right? Because that's another thing. I mean, like we all have busy lives. We have a lot of things going on and you're trying to do like all the things and you just can't fit it all in a day. And again, I think that's where people fail is because they're just putting too much on their plates.
Yes.
And like again, if it could be as like simple as like so someone who let's say doesn't have anything more like deeper going on, someone who like overall generally healthy and is just trying to see like body composition changes. If they like can make the simple changes of like I'm walking daily, I'm drinking my water, I'm eating fruits and vegetables and I'm going to bed early, I guarantee you like if they did that for like a few weeks, even a month, they would start to see like some changes. This is gonna
Yeah.
like, like small changes over time.
Yep.
And I always tell my patients, like, we all have different seasons in our life. So kind of like let's scale back and think about like in your current season and like what you have going on with your life realistically, like what you do today, even if it's just one thing that you can do, even if it's just like I drank my water today, I did my steps, whatever it is, like that's still going to have a positive impact and it's going to better promote like consistency and then helping to like adopt other changes versus again trying to do like 50 things in one day and not doing any and failing or only doing one but feeling like you're failing. And then that I think is why people are not consistent with anything. Because then again, they're not giving the body time. They're not seeing the changes or the results. So then like they jump to, okay, I tried keto, didn't work. Now I'm going to try paleo or now I'm going to try this or like give me a green powder and just, that's all I'm going to, you know what I mean?
Right.
Things like that. So.
Yep. Yeah, that's one of the main takeaways. I have my precision nutrition coaching certification, and then I did a different one called Healthy Steps Nutrition. And I mean, that's really what it was about. Outside of like your background's much more science-based and stuff, mine was more about like the behavioral side of coaching. But that was the number one thing is that and I don't remember the stat, 70-80% likely to fail when you tackle more than one thing at once. And that's the reason why New Year's resolutions fail is because, okay, I have this laundry list of all the things I'm going to accomplish by February, but I fell off by January 2nd. So yeah, so it's if you just tackle one thing and just focus on the consistency and then add that next thing, you're just so much more likely to succeed.
Yeah. I mean, it does take time, right? Like it's not going to happen overnight, but that's the thing. And that's like what sustainability is, right? Like realistically, we also all want to be able to like have fun and like be people and do
Yes.
things and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But yeah, so if you want it to be sustainable and actually work, like it's slower is better when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Totally. And so how do these issues, gut health and hormones and weight control, like connect with each other? And do you think one imbalance can impact the other and just
Yeah.
spiral?
I would say that the gut is probably like the first place where most of that kind of stuff is again. So gut health is super important. So, I mean, when we think of gut, I think first we think of more like digestion and then elimination, right? So, like, this always like people get surprised, or at least some of my patients get surprised when we talk about bowel movements and digestion. And, they're like, oh, I go every other day or only 2 times a week or something. And they think that that's like normal for them. And like, you should be having a bowel movement daily. This is how our body detoxes and get things out of our system. But the gut doesn't only like have a role in supporting that piece of things in regards to digestion. Your gut is in charge of supporting your immune health and your immune system. So, protecting our body from viruses, pathogens, when we get sick, how we recover. Again, it has a role in producing key nutrients like vitamin K and some of our B vitamins. Your gut plays a role in mental health because, again, it has an impact on neurotransmitters. So things like dopamine, serotonin. So the gut, again, like if something's off in the gut, it's going to throw a lot of other pieces in the body and in the system off. And so the gut and the hormones definitely do go hand in hand a lot of times. So I'm always starting with evaluating your gut health to see how that is. And if something kind of seems off, then we're going to work on nutritional support for that. And then in terms, I mean, that can definitely have an impact on weight because if your body is having issues with detoxing and digesting nutrients appropriately, that can lead to malabsorption issues. And then that can also, slow down weight loss as well.
So I'm, curious if someone has been, let's say, ignoring issues for years, like what are the red flags to get them to be like, I think I need to go, like listening to this podcast, like I think I need to go seek out Noelle. Like what are these big red flags?
Yeah. So I would say, again, if you think of like the bowel stuff, if you're not having daily bowel movements, that's definitely should be like red flag number one, because that again is like a sign of slow detox, slow digestion, something going on there. I like to think of it as more like two, if you're having more like, I guess, I don't know if chronic is the right word, but like things that are like happening, like that are impairing your day-to-day function, right? So like it's normal every once in a while for someone to have some form of bloating or some like inconsistencies with bowel movements. But if it's something that's like constantly happening daily, then that's definitely a sign of like something's off in the system.
Yeah.
And that needs to be corrected. So when it comes to like the fatigue, the low energy, the brain fog, I would say those are really big ones too. Even too, I like totally didn't even, I don't know, I just forgot about this, but with gut stuff too, like inflammation, like in the standpoint of like skin. So like even like acne or eczema, or like if you notice you feel like you have like rashes or hives, that can all be tied into the gut as well too. And then can be, again, something more deeper going on in there that needs to be kind of resolved.
Yeah. And they're like, put lotion on it. And it's like, but why is it happening? Totally. Yeah. I love your approach. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Let's say someone comes to you. I'm curious to know, what is the trajectory of a typical client? They fill it out on the website, and what's the intake process, and like how often do you meet with them, and what do those meetings look like?
Yeah. So once they, go online, fill out all their forms and kind of like get set up with an appointment, we have an initial consult. Most of our initial consults range anywhere from like 60 minutes to an hour and a half. So they're definitely a lot more in depth than like maybe some of your traditional like doctor's appointments where you get like 15 minutes
Yeah.
and then you're done.
You got to get out.
So the initial is typically pretty long. Go through and do a very extensive health history. So I get a background of any like diagnoses that you may already have or conditions. Sometimes people come with things already diagnosed that they need to like work on. So your diagnoses, if you have any family medical history, history of surgeries, and then kind of just going more in depth. I talk a lot about with them their GI. So do they have do you have any GI imbalances, or how are your bowel movements, that kind of stuff. I talk a lot about sleep, energy. And then we do more talk about obviously like food intake. So, like, what does a typical day of eating look like for you? When do you eat? How often do you eat? Just to get a really good like understanding of what their current intake already is. I like to find out what their relationship with food is. Do they, struggle more with food fear or guilt around food, or, emotional eating with food or things like that. So kind of getting a good understanding of kind of currently what's going on with their intake. And normally within the first appointment, like kind of going through all of that. And then we also talk about physical activity and water intake as well too. That kind of gives me a good understanding of like where this person is at, and if they're maybe someone who does have a kind of solid nutritional, founding and base, and maybe again like it is diving deeper into some of those other things like hormones or gut or something else. Or is it someone who's coming to me who like isn't eating 3 meals a day, and they're going out and getting fast foods or processed foods multiple times throughout the week, and they need a lot more of like that, base understanding and foundations of nutritions.
Mm-hmm.
And so based on that, then like we'll kind of start setting some goals that we're going to go through, and then determining what our like appointment follow-ups are going to look like. So generally, when I'm starting with new patients, I typically recommend trying to meet every 2 weeks in the beginning. And that's because normally in the beginning, we're doing more like educational. So a lot of like education. And then from like after doing education, again, coming up with more of a solid, like these are your goals that you're working on, and tracking our goals and holding them accountable. So there's kind of a couple of different ways I do that with patients. And again, kind of determine that based on just the patient themselves and their comfortability. Some people really enjoy using something like, whether it's like a tracking app where they like take pictures and upload them of their meals, or just like typing in like what they ate for the day type of deal. Other patients, that kind of gives them more like anxiety or stress. So then maybe we'd, just kind of do more like word of mouth type of check-ins on how things are going. But I typically feel like 2 weeks in the beginning when I first start meeting with patients is a good amount of time to like let them absorb and kind of take in all the information we talked about, and then start working on some of those changes that we discussed.
Mm-hmm.
And then following up from there. And then I would say after maybe the first like month of that, or a month and a half, give or take, we kind of determine like how frequently you're going to meet. So some patients I'm meeting with weekly still, some patients once a month, some patients every 6 weeks. So it kind of just varies across the board based on
Yeah.
what they're coming in for, what we need to work on, and that kind of stuff.
How long do you typically work with them?
Like some of them I'm seeing for, again, it depends. I have some patients I've been seeing for over a year now. Other patients, maybe it's more like 3 to 6 months, again, depending on what's going on. So it does kind of just vary, again, based on the individual, what's going on, and kind of just how their progress is and things like that.
Yeah. So do you have a favorite client, or someone that, or I'm sorry, patient that sticks out in your head that was like awesome, right? Like they got results, they were stuck to what they did what you asked them
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah. So I have a patient, I'm still working with her now. So I'd say we're like I would say we have good results. Like we're not maybe to like the end of where we want to be yet, but
Yeah.
like definitely like big changes. And she came in as like a patient who was struggling with like chronic bloating and digestive issues. And she just felt like she was, doing all the things. I think she was doing a lot of, again, like she would be like, oh, I saw this supplement on TikTok. And I was
Oh
like, gosh.
no.
So kind of like she just didn't know what to do either. She was just
Yes.
doing all the things and not really seeing like any improvements, any changes. So we ended up doing a stool test with her, which gave us more information. But the interesting thing working with her was we found that there wasn't like too much, surprisingly, like bad stuff going on in her stool. Like I kind of would have suspected just based on like symptoms and what she was talking about. It was a lot more related to like her eating patterns and habits. And that like really does have an impact on your digestion as well too. So she definitely had a little more, I think it was more body image, if you wanted to say too, because the
Hmm.
bloating, it by no means was she overweight or needed to lose weight, but she felt like she was because she was bloated all the
Sure.
time. And, she's a younger girl. So obviously that's, a big thing for them when
Hmm.
you're out with your friends and you're kind of feeling just kind of gross like that all the
Yeah.
time and uncomfortable. And so it was really like kind of like messing up with like her mental health and like how she was viewing herself and then also her eating habits. And so she was like skipping meals, she wasn't eating. And it was hard for her to understand and learn that even though she was bloated and not feeling the greatest, that like actually not eating actually makes bloating worse and you actually need to eat when you're bloated
Mhm.
still. Slowly we worked on just like getting her to consistently like first it was just like eating consistently like small little meals throughout the day and kind of
Mhm.
like working her way up to like now she's like making breakfast every morning and like meal prepping breakfast on the weekends and her boyfriend like make dinner together and she's eating lunch and she's like back into her daily walks like she was doing and hydrating. And so like now she's saying like the bloating is pretty much like mostly gone. Like here and there, she has occasional bloating still. Overall, I think not just from a digestive standpoint, but even just like from a mental health and like just like overall how you feel,
Mhm.
right? Um,
Yeah, feel good, look good.
yeah.
Yeah, totally. Anything in particular surprise her or well, I can imagine what surprised her. She was probably like, "Wow, eating consistently is going to solve my issues." But what about you? Anything of working with her in particular, or even other patients, like what surprises you the most?
One of my favorite things, I don't know if this is something that I don't even know if this is going to answer your question, but I would say like one of my favorite things is when I'm working with a patient and we get off of like the whole like scale and the number and all that. And we start to just like kind of focus more on like I'm eating and empowering my body, my mind, I'm getting strong, like that kind of stuff. And when
Yeah.
they like kind of even like then just like naturally are on their own, like they maybe came in to work with me first for like their goal was weight loss, let's say, or whatever. But then, like, as we start focusing on some of these other things and we start to see, like, oh, my energy is actually better and like I'm getting stronger. And I feel like my workouts, I'm like, whether it's I'm lifting heavier or I can do cardio longer or whatever,
Mhm.
they like totally don't even focus on the weight anymore. And like they
Nice.
just like feel so much better from that standpoint. And like for them learning and knowing how like food, eating like good food and real food and nourishing your body appropriately really can like that's like what makes like a solid
Yeah.
difference in what you're doing.
Yeah, I'd say that answers it. Out of curiosity, what is the science behind bloating? And like why is that if you skip another meal that it's actually going to make it worse?
Because that has a lot to do with your blood sugars and your blood sugars kind of like our blood sugars, so basically you can kind of think of it as like a roller coaster type of effect, right? Or
Mhm.
ride, if you want to say. So when we put food into our systems, what we're supposed to do is break down those foods, and that's supposed to then provide our body with like energy it needs and, all the things to kind of get us going through the day. And depending on what we're eating or if we're not eating, that's going to cause our blood sugars to be either like super lower and start to dip, or if we're eating the wrong things, it can cause them to like skyrocket and
Mhm.
then crash, right?
Mhm.
And so this is kind of what like leads to that vicious cycle of impairing your digestion and leading to that bloat and uncomfortability. And then, then you're just like on this cycle of either you're not eating because of that, right? Which is like prolongs the lower blood sugars, or you are doing the opposite and like not eating maybe the best choices. And then
Mhm.
you're causing kind of that spike and that drop to happen again.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah. Moral of the story is eat consistently.
Yeah. Consistently, not just for the bloating, but for
Right, right. Yeah. For women listening who are struggling right now, what would you say is the most empowering thing that they should know?
one of the things that I always like want women to know is that one, like all of our bodies are very individualized and unique. So like not taking that one size fits all approach and like really learning and understanding what works for you and for your body. And like, that's going to look different from each person that you come in contact with. Two is also like, I see a lot of women come to me and they kind of get like dismissed, I guess, if you want to say, from like their doctors or providers in the sense that like they are explaining these symptoms or things that they have going on and they're kind of just getting brushed off as like, okay, this is what happens when we go through menopause,
I
or
was
this is what
just gonna
happens at
say,
this.
yes.
And I feel like, yes, to some degree, like that can happen, but it doesn't have to be like if you're having very like severe symptoms, whether it's related to like menopause or even just like females with their menstrual cycles, that's not normal. So like if you have crazy PMS, crazy periods, or again, going through menopause or perimenopause, like a lot of the hot flashes and like all those really, the weight gain, all that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
that's a sign of like something else going on. And so for a doctor or someone to say, well, like this is just like your rite of passage or this is what's supposed to happen, like, I don't know, I want women to feel confident to be able to like either fight for themselves in the sense of like, maybe you have to find a different doctor
Yeah.
who will better help you, or, knowing that like not the answer and that there are things that you can do from a lifestyle and like nutrition and food standpoint to help support your body to make the process easier.
Yeah. We should have a whole nother episode on functional nutrition and menopause and strength training, and
Yeah.
because it sucks really that we train a lot of clients who are perimenopausal or menopausal, and they're frustrated to
Yeah.
say the least. And what I think is cool is that there's a lot of buzz around it, that it's not like so taboo to be talking about it
Yeah.
anymore, which is awesome,
Yeah.
but it does still need to be brought to light, and I'm glad that you said that, and that there are things that women can do
Yeah.
to kind of take control back.
Yeah. I would say like when any of my females that come to me that are in like their 20s, early 30s, because you can start going into perimenopause now as like early as your 30s. It's pretty
Wow.
like it's like kind of on the rare end, but
Mhm.
like it can happen. So if you start doing stuff now, and like building those foundations now, it's going to make the experience so much easier than like, think about it. If like all through your 30s, 40s, whatnot, you like weren't eating good, you weren't working out, you weren't strength training, all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, like menopause hits and all your hormones are like declining and, all that stuff happens. It's
Yikes.
so harder to be like, okay, now I got to get to the gym. Not
Right.
that you can't do it, people do it, but like it makes it challenging.
Absolutely.
If you start to do the stuff now, it should prevent some of those symptoms from happening.
Mhm.
Or when, if you do experience some of those types of symptoms, they should be more manageable. It shouldn't be something that's like really like impairing your day to day, making it so hard for you to like get through.
Yeah. What is your wish for every woman to know that in terms of how their body actually works?
Yeah. Eat carbs. I
Yes,
feel
your
like
body needs
we need
carbs.
carbs. We need all carbs. Good. I mean, you can still have the fun carbs, but definitely need to like eat carbs for hormonal support, for balance, for energy. That's huge because I feel like I have too many women who like fear them and just like
Yeah.
cut them out of their body.
Like,
And
thank you,
then
media.
yeah. And then also just to kind of like, I definitely think like giving yourself grace when it comes to all this kind of stuff. Everyone has different roles, whether if you're a mom, whether you're doing your own business, whatever, wife, whatever you do, you have things that like we're trying to do it all that. And then you're trying to like do the things to support yourself as well too.
Mhm.
So giving yourself grace, like taking it day by day, doing the small little things that you can do that are going to still like positively impact your health, and not putting so much like excess stress on, I'm not doing all the things that I feel like people are telling me I
Yeah.
should be doing.
Yeah. What does being a strong woman mean to you right now in this phase of your life?
When I think of my health and wellness, it's having like the energy and the just like feeling good to get up and like do the things that I love to do daily to support the people in my life. So right now for me, that's my husband. I have a very close connection with my parents. We're living at home right now with my parents.
Nice.
We moved there in the intermediate as we're looking to, find our next places. So
Cool.
just like kind of being there to help and support them right now. My parents did so much for me when I was younger growing up. So I want to be able to kind of like be there for them and help
Yeah.
them as I can.
That's beautiful.
So
And speaking to other ladies who want to be stronger physically, mentally, internally, externally, what are 2 or 3 small changes that someone could start making this week to better support, their overall health, their gut health, their hormone health, their
yeah,
body composition?
I would say when it comes to food, like the easiest thing you can do is just make sure you eat fruits and vegetables daily. Those give you a ton of antioxidants, fiber, really good for supporting the gut, your immune, balancing hormones. So like simplest, even if it's like I have a busy day and I'm making a frozen pizza for dinner because that's all I have time for, like throw some fruit on the side with it and put a salad on the
Okay.
side with it. So get in your fruits and veggies, I feel like is super simple, without like overcomplicating it. Drinking water. I have found that like hydrating has been super helpful. So getting in your water. I like to add electrolytes to my water. I feel
Yes,
like
me too.
that's helped a lot. And then sleep. Honestly,
Mhm.
I can't sleep is how our body recovers and how we protect our immune system. And if we are not getting, a good solid 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night, it can really throw
It's
things
bru
off. So
Yeah.
those are kind of three very base level things that I would say, if you can just focus on those, you should start to see some good and movement, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, always. And strength training in
Yes.
particular.
Yes.
At W3 Body, just shameless plug. So awesome. And I know you mentioned it earlier, but if someone wants to learn more or work with you, where can they find you?
Yes. So, SarahLynnNutrition.com. That's our website. Lynn is Lynn.
Okay.
And then it's nutrition. So it's kind of funky when you type it in because it's
Okay.
three N's in a
Yeah.
row. But that's where you can go online and find all about the company. And then if you're, interested in signing up and doing counseling sessions and going from there. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. Like I said, I love your approach and I really appreciate you taking the time to be on this podcast with me and with all of our listeners. It's extremely informational and I know that everyone's going to get a ton out of it. So thank you so much for being willing to answer all my questions
Yeah.
and sharing all of your knowledge with us. And ladies and anyone listening to this episode, if you're seeking help or guidance with your nutrition for symptoms that Noelle mentioned, or maybe something she didn't, please feel free to contact her. Check out the website. She might be your girl. Or if you know someone who struggles with any of the issues that we mentioned and could use some help, please share this episode with them. We're on a mission to inspire and educate through stories and facts, and we'd love to inspire and educate your family and friends too. Don't forget to hit the follow button so you never miss a story or expert advice that might be just what you need to hear. Thank you so much for tuning in to Real Women, Real Results. I am your host, Jamie Revell, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for tuning in to Real Women, Real Results. If you loved this episode, be sure to follow the podcast and leave a review. It helps more women find these powerful stories. If you're local and want to join our gym, check out our 4-week trial. Head to train@w3body.com for more info. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, w3body_Berwyn and w3body_Elmhurst for more strength, support, and community. See you next time.